The World Trade Organization Director General, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has commended President Bola Tinubu for stabilizing Nigeria's economy, saying reforms are moving in the right direction. Speaking after a courtesy visit to the presidential villa on Thursday, the former finance minister stressed the need to prioritize economic growth and introduce social safety nets to cushion the impact of reforms on citizens.
With the help of the First Lady, we launched a Women Exporters Fund for the digital economy. This is a fund that is jointly managed by the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and the ITC, the International Trade Center in Geneva. And the idea is to help support the economy and support women to be able to weather the storms of the economy and be able to create jobs for themselves, for others. We had 67,000 Nigerian women who applied for this, and 146, can you imagine, 67,000, 146 won, and they are going to have money disbursed directly to them. 16 of them won what we call the booster track. Those who already have businesses, but their businesses will be scaled up. They will receive technical and business support for 18 months from the WTO and the ITC, and working with the ministry. So we think that the president and his team, and we just exchanged with him, have worked hard to stabilize the economy. And you cannot really improve an economy unless it's stable. So he has to be given the credit for the stability of the economy. So the reforms have been in the right direction. What is needed next is growth. We now need to grow the economy, and we need to put in social safety nets so that people who are feeling the pinch of the reforms can also have some support to be able to weather the hardship. So that's the next step. How do we build social safety net to help Nigerians cushion the hardship they're feeling? And then how do we grow the economy so we can create more jobs and put more money in people's pockets? These are issues that we discussed.
Very interesting. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.13% in Q1 2025 compared to 2.27% in Q1 2024, buoyed by strong performances in the services and industry sectors. Meanwhile, data analysts say the Naira is in its longest stretch of stability since mid-June to early August, holding within a narrow band of 1,520 to 1,537 per dollar for almost 8 full weeks. Well, joining us to look into this development is a partner at SBM Intelligence research consultancy firm. We do have Mr. Ikemesit Effiong, who joins us live. Welcome, and good to see you this morning. First off, how excited are you that we do have one who was in power during the Goodluck Jonathan's time and currently is championing WTO, coming to Nigeria, her own country, to say, listen, despite the turbulences, your economy is now stabilized. Sounds like good news.
It does sound like good news, and thanks very much for having me. I don't know if excited is the exact term I would use to describe how I feel about it, but she is right. Nigeria has a much more stable economy, especially compared to the last 3 to 5 years, albeit this is stability at a higher price point for most Nigerians on practically every significant economic item that one could imagine we're making spending decisions on. But stability is still the order of the day. The currency is doing much better than it has been at any point in time over the last half decade. Inflation is moderating somewhat. You're still seeing price rises, but the rate of price increases has also is also moderating as well. Fuel prices have also seen some measure of price stability, and we know that that's a key component in things like food production, things like transportation and logistics, and so that occupies an important part of the spending decision making of most Nigerian households. It has stabilized at at a higher price point, but it's still stability. And more importantly, the availability of produce and the availability of your products is also largely assured right now. We've had the tax reform bills that have been passed into law. There's a new insurance act, for example, now, which is also supposed to help incentivize Nigerians to take out more insurance products. There's a new round of recapitalization going on in the financial sector for both banks as well as insurance firms. So a fair amount of work has gone into economic reform, right, and stability, and probably a lot of the hard work and a lot of the homework in terms of economic reform has already been front-loaded by the current administration. What now needs to happen is the execution in order to set us on a path towards growth. 3.13% GDP growth is okay, but it's not spectacular, especially when you compare that to the fact that every year something like 4 to 550,000 new Nigerians, right, are born, right? Our population growth rate is something like 2.7%. You really want economic growth to be significantly higher than population growth, so that that means that the net overall growth in the economy, right, is significant enough that Nigerians can begin to feel the effects of that. I think a lot of what we've seen now is statistically good, but the actual real world effect is less than desired, and that's where a lot of the work now needs to happen.
All right, you've talked about several factors that have maybe contributed to this economic stability that we're experiencing. I want us to talk a little bit about the Naira, and the reports have it that it's experiencing the most stable run in 2025, the band of 1,520 to 1,537 per dollar for almost 8 weeks. That's from like mid-June to early August. What would you say are the factors that have contributed to this? And, usually when we hear good news like this, there's always that side eye that Nigerians are giving and speculating that this is just propaganda and it's not reason to be excited, maybe a trauma response. But what would you say are the factors that have led to this? And do you trust this stability? What are your projections for, what this means and what this will mean in the coming weeks?
Okay, I think the key thing to recognize about currency stability is that the markets believe that the fair value of the Naira is around this particular price point. And, we've been saying that SBM Intelligence and a lot of other market commentators have been saying that we'd only achieve real price stability if the Central Bank of Nigeria, and by extension, other monetary other monetary policy makers allow the Naira find its fair value and not try to manage its value in a way that is politically convenient or politically expedient. What we've seen is that the CBN has largely held the ground in terms of intervening in the currency markets, right, in order to in effect puts pressure on the Naira, right, to go down to a certain extent. And what's quite remarkable about this current period of price stability is that this is happening during the Northern Hemisphere summer periods, right, where demand for foreign currency for things like summer vacations, for things like lifestyle-induced imports is usually at its highest. Right, and so that I think is a commentary, right, by the market to basically say we believe that the fair value of the Naira is around the 1,500 plus, right, price band, and because of that, you've seen a situation where the Naira has largely held its own. It's also worth noting that a fair amount of Naira demand on the corporate and commercial side has also been somewhat front-loaded. I know the CBN has been a lot more diligent in sort of helping to fulfill the demand for foreign currency for things like importing inputs into manufacturing, agro processing, as well as other sectors that require significant amounts of foreign import inputs in order to drive their domestic manufacturing operations in the country. And then you also have a situation where other other sources of foreign currency, or other foreign currency sources are also coming on board and online, right, to the market. And so the CBN is not the sole or it remains the primary, but it's not the sole source of foreign currency in the Nigerian market. And again, that's largely happening because trust in the currency has to a large extent being restored. Where does the Naira go from here? Well, if the CBN continues to basically allow the market determine the Naira's face value, we don't think that the value of the currency will stray far from where it is. It will still maintain this 5 to 7, 8 Naira price band, we think, at least over the rest of the year. The critical concern is that as we head into 2026, it's a pre-election year. That is usually a source of external pressure, right, on the national currency, for political reasons, and all of that. I think your last guest was talking about political induced corruption, or at least the allegations of politically induced corruption, and it's an open secret that in the Nigerian politics is greased down wheel, right, by money, some of which is foreign, some of which is denominated in foreign currency. So the outlook for 2025 is largely stable. 2026 and the start of elections may usher in a new period of currency uncertainty in that regard. So fingers crossed.
All right. I mean, we've looked into the aspects of how the economy is indeed being bolstered. But let's also look at a very, somewhat critical aspect of it. And it's got to do with the fact that the summer holidays are around the corner. And I'm sure everyone has prepared, packed their bags, they're ready to travel. So this will put a demand on the dollar, as it were, especially looking at foreign exchange, which typically, spikes as Nigerians travel abroad, go for that, beautiful destinations, spend money, and do all of that. Do you think the Naira would somehow still manage to stay afloat now that we are approaching summer?
Yep, already.
I mean, it's largely the Naira has largely held its ground. I mean, we're in the middle of August. We've still got 4 or 5 more weeks of the European North American summer right to go, and Naira has generally done well. So we don't think, in the absence of any sort of precipitating event or any serious external shock, maybe a sharp spike, for example, in the price of crude globally, and the Naira being an oil currency would definitely take a hit from things like that. So some kind of significant geopolitical shock. Someone invades someone fires a missile at someone, and there's that renewed uncertainty in around the world. I don't think that or we do something remarkable domestically back home from an economic standpoint. I don't think that the Naira will the Naira will see any significant period of weakness or uncertainty, at least for the rest of the summer period. I think to our minds, 2025 appears to be mostly locked and baked in, right, from a Naira stability perspective. 2026 and definitely early 2027, right, are the more interesting years because of those, domestic political considerations and how a lot of that excess spending, right, is likely to play out. Another thing I should mention that the CBN has actually done is also modulate the actual supply, the actual money supply, right, and so the amount of Naira that is circulating within the economy, at least the cash component of it, has been largely dampened down. Now, obviously, the first step that we took in getting a handle on that process was, highly destructive and corrosive for, a lot of Nigerian businesses when we had the Naira scarcity thing. But since then, we've been able to build on the gains of that. A lot more transactions, right, are being fulfilled electronically. POS transactions are recording multi-year highs. NIP transactions, instant payments, settlements, and all of that are also at record levels. And so the cash components of Nigeria's overall money supply right, is coming down to levels that we haven't seen for quite a while, and that also has an effect also tangentially on the value of the naira. And so we think that a combination of all of these factors means that over the next 6 months, the naira should generally be fine. I'm saying this for the third time, right? Come New Year 2026, things may get a lot more interesting.
Amen.
Interesting. Now, Mr. Effiong, finally, before we let you go, quickly, if you can. I mean, for the ordinary Nigerians, lay Nigerians watching this program, we've talked about stability, we've talked about good news, and the naira also. Does this stabilization, what does it translate to for the Nigerian on the street? Does it mean that prices would increase, it's stable? And when will it result to lower prices of goods and services? What does the government need to do? Because all they're interested in is, look, things used to be very expensive. Things are very expensive. And they weren't this expensive before. So is the government looking at that? What do they need to do to further lower prices?
Well, I mean, targeted interventions, especially for lower income households, will be, a very good way to go. Right. So we talked about stability, but this stability is occurring at a higher price point. Fuel prices have never been this high, right, in our history. Food inflation is still at, levels that we haven't seen since the mid 1990s, and, sort of the oil shocks and the uncertainty around uncertainty around the economic management under the then military administration, right? Our latest Jollof Index indicator, right, which is a food inflation tracking proxy, right, has increased sevenfold from something like 4,000 plus naira in 2016 to 28K, right, by the end of June of this year. So, those are really unsettling and uncomfortable numbers, right? And just as the WTO and Director General said, we've achieved stability, now it's time for growth. Only when the economy begins to grow at a pace which outpaces a lot of these macroeconomic indicators, will you begin to see prices begin to soften and, and prices, basically, and calm down. Fact of the matter is that, for most Nigerians who can't afford a lot of services, they really stop spending, or they're penny pinching, as it were, right? We need growth so that we are able to create more jobs, we're able to bump up salaries, and that increases the consumption potential, the spending potential of the average Nigerian. And it's only then, right, that, prices would begin to calm down and Nigerians will be able to afford a lot of things that they have historically been able to buy, but over the last few years, they've had to reduce either the quantity or look for substitute products, or otherwise just, generally stay out of spending altogether. So that's the way to go. Economic growth needs to easily do, 5 to 7% for Nigerians to really begin to feel the effects of that. But the preconditions are there. Policymakers just need to continue to do the hard work of, sensible common sense reform, as well as supporting lower income households through this trying time, and incentivizing investors to continue to invest in the economy so that we're able to bump up wages and Nigerians are able to spend, a lot of that excess cash, as it were, on goods and services within the economy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing these thoughts, especially on this story. And once again, we'll say good news for Nigerians. It surely means that we need to brace up as the year winds down, or better still comes to an end. We are indeed hoping that very, very soon, the naira will come down from 1,500 to 900 naira. 900 to $1.
Is that wishful thinking?
Yes, yes. I believe that it. Yeah, I mean.
We're allowed to hope.
Yes, that's it.
The hope is not a
strategy. I know. I knew you were going to say that. I knew. But thank you so much, Ikemesit, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
My pleasure. Have a great weekend, guys.
Okay.